I knew this night had crossed into pure nightmare territory the moment the boyfriend's mother staggered into the doorway, saw her dying cat, and unleashed a broken scream that echoed through the entire house, right as the girlfriend burst into uncontrollable laughter so intense she literally peed her pants. That was the second I realized I was trapped inside the most catastrophically awkward dinner of my entire life. Don't forget we were a growing family. Support us with a simple subscribe so we can keep creating powerful stories for you. The evening began with the kind of casual optimism that always feels safe. I had been invited to cook dinner with two friends, a straight couple I'd hung out with plenty of times. They were the kind of people who liked hosting small gatherings, always pulling you into their plans with easy smiles and the promise of good food and better wine. They told me we'd be cooking at the boyfriend's mom's house because she had more kitchen space and 1,000 gadgets none of us actually knew how to use. The mom was at work for the day, so the place was ours until she came home. It sounded relaxed, simple, completely harmless. The house itself radiated that cozy suburban charm: family portraits, soft lighting, shelves filled with knickknacks that had probably been there for decades. When I walked in, the couple already had a bottle of wine open, and we didn't waste a second before pouring ourselves generous glasses. The kitchen filled with laughter, clinking utensils, exaggerated arguments about the correct way to season vegetables, and the comforting rhythm of food sizzling on the stove. It felt warm in the way only shared meals can feel, the kind of warmth that lets you forget anything could possibly go wrong. Pickles, the mom's cat, was part of the household scenery, an older, slow-moving tabby who lounged wherever he pleased. I'd seen him on visits before, always curled on a blanket like a retired king surveying his kingdom. The couple mentioned he'd been sick, but sick the way older pets are sick, slow, tired, a little off. Nothing alarming, nothing that suggested we were about to witness his final hours, but halfway through chopping vegetables, something shifted. Pickles wasn't just resting, he wasn't moving at all. Not blinking, not shifting positions, not reacting when pots clattered or when the girlfriend accidentally dropped a spoon directly next to him. There was a stillness in his body that made the room colder, sharper, wrong. The boyfriend noticed first. He set down the cutting board and crouched beside the cat with slow, cautious movements, like he already knew he wouldn't like what he found. He placed his hand on Pickles' side, waited, then looked up at us with a face drained of color. Pickles was alive, but barely, each breath thin, spaced too far apart, the kind of fragile rhythm you can mistake for anything but the end. The girlfriend froze, wine glass halfway to her mouth. She wasn't a big animal person, so her shock came out more as exasperation than sadness. She muttered something about terrible timing, but I don't think she meant it unkindly, just awkwardly, unhelpfully. The boyfriend immediately called the vet, pacing the kitchen with the panicked, uneven steps of someone trying to bargain with reality. While he talked, the girlfriend kept sipping. Her discomfort always manifested as drinking. She shot me a look that said, "What do we even do?" I didn't have an answer. The sizzling of food, once comforting, now felt inappropriate, too lively, too loud for a room holding a dying creature. When the boyfriend hung up the phone, he looked hollow. The vet had told him there was nothing they could do. Pickles was at the end of his life. No treatments, no interventions, just make him comfortable and wait. That was the part that sank like a stone in all of our chests. Wait. The mom wasn't even home yet. She had no idea her pet, her companion, her comfort after long work days, was living his final moments before her arrival. The silence that followed that realization wasn't just awkward. It was thick, heavy, suffocating. We tried to keep cooking, but no one was laughing anymore. Wine didn't taste fun anymore either. It tasted like something to hide behind. The boyfriend kept checking on Pickles every few minutes, whispering to him quietly, stroking his fur with gentleness so painful you could feel it in your ribs. Then we heard the car in the driveway. The sound made all three of us freeze. The mom was home. The boyfriend looked like his soul was about to leave his body. The girlfriend straightened up, tightened her ponytail, and gulped more wine like she was bracing for a storm. I put down the spoon I was holding and suddenly couldn't remember what it was for. The mom walked in with her purse over her shoulder, smiling the tired smile of someone who worked all day and was excited to come home to warmth, food, and company. But she didn't get far. She didn't need any explanation. All she had to do was look once at her son's expression, then at the cat lying motionless under the kitchen light. What happened next is something I will never forget. She didn't cry, at least not at first. She let out a sound so raw, so guttural, so drenched in heartbreak that it didn't even sound human. It was the sound of pure grief ripping through the air. She dropped to her knees so fast, the purse slipped off her shoulder and thudded to the floor. She touched Pickles' fur with trembling hands, whispering his name like it would bring him back, then collapsed forward in full, shaking sobs that tore through the house. It was the kind of grief that rearranges the air around you, the kind that makes you feel like an intruder for witnessing it, the kind you never forget. The boyfriend rushed to her, holding her, trying to soothe her even though he was barely holding himself together. The girlfriend stood behind me, her expression twisting between discomfort and impatience, already pulling out her phone to text me some snide remark about the situation. I felt my stomach knot up. The moment was so raw, so vulnerable, and we were the wrong audience for it. Eventually, the mom managed to stand, wiping her face with the back of her hand, though the tears didn't stop. The boyfriend gently suggested we finish dinner, maybe hoping sitting down would prevent her from collapsing again. She agreed with this weak, trembling nod, but her eyes never left the cat. Setting the table after that felt like assembling a crime scene. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed too loudly. Every scrape of a chair, every clink of a fork felt like an affront to the gravity of the moment. But we sat. We tried to eat. We tried to pretend the air wasn't full of grief. The girlfriend, meanwhile, was getting rapidly drunk. Every time the mom sniffled, she rolled her eyes dramatically. She texted me under the table, typing things like, "She's being dramatic and this is too much over a cat." I ignored the messages, staring hard at my plate because if I acknowledged them, I would either laugh from the absurdity or cry from the tension. I was carrying the conversation alone, trying to comment on the food, the weather, anything that would break the suffocating silence. But everything fell flat. Everything sounded wrong. The mom sniffled louder. The girlfriend chugged more wine. The boyfriend stared at his plate like he wished it would swallow him whole. Then came the moment that destroyed everything. I asked, quietly and politely, for someone to pass the potatoes. It was a normal request, a perfectly innocent sentence, but the mom froze. Her face contorted, her mouth trembled, and then she let out this long, warbling, heartbroken cry, "Pickles!" The sound bounced off the walls like a haunting echo. The girlfriend locked eyes with me. I tried so hard. I clenched my jaw. I held my breath. I stared at the table. I did everything to keep a straight face. But the girlfriend shattered. She burst into hysterical laughter, explosive, uncontrollable, loud enough to drown out everything else. She slapped the table. She kicked her legs. She bent over, practically choking from how hard she was laughing. The boyfriend looked at her like she had committed a felony. The mom pushed her chair back so violently it screeched, then ran straight into the garage, wailing in agony. And I felt that horrific pressure of inappropriate laughter rise in my chest like a tidal wave. I froze, every muscle in my face shaking from holding it in. In the garage, the mom sobbed louder, her voice quivering as she cried out the cat's name over and over. The girlfriend's laughter only escalated. She tried to stop, but that only made her laugh harder. Her whole body shook. Then it happened. She laughed so hard she peed her pants. She gasped, looked down, and then laughed even harder. At that exact moment, something inside me cracked too. The absurdity, the pressure, the whine, the tension. It all collided, and I couldn't breathe from holding in a laugh I absolutely could not let out. The boyfriend ran to the garage yelling, "Mom, stop crying on the cat." The mom wailed louder. The girlfriend screamed in laughter. I stood in the kitchen drinking straight from the wine bottle because reality had broken. The moment the mom fled into the garage crying and the girlfriend dissolved into drunken hysteria, the entire night split into two realities, one where grief echoed against cold concrete walls, and another where inappropriate laughter ricocheted through the dining room like a malfunctioning siren. and I was trapped in the middle, stretched thin between sorrow and absurdity, trying to hold myself together even as the night dragged itself deeper into emotional chaos. The boyfriend stood in the garage doorway, torn between comforting his mother and wanting to scream into the void. His face was twisted into this mixture of panic, embarrassment, and utter disbelief, like he couldn't comprehend how a night meant to be peaceful had turned into a full-blown tragedy comedy. The cat lay on a towel the mom had hastily placed underneath him, her tears soaking the fabric. The mother hovered over Pickles, petting him with trembling hands, whispering apologies as though she thought he left the world believing she had failed him. Her grief was so raw, it made the air feel heavy. Inside, the girlfriend was a completely different type of disaster. She had tipped past regular drunkenness and landed squarely in the realm of chaotic intoxication, the kind where everything becomes funny, logic dissolves, and your body no longer respects the rules of functioning adulthood. She slid down in her chair, waving her arm as she mouthed silent fits of laughter. Tears streamed down her face, but not from sadness, from pure, unfiltered hysteria. She kicked her legs and clutched her stomach like she'd been personally attacked by humor. I stood frozen between two catastrophic forces, grief in the garage and clownish chaos in the dining room. My brain kept repeating the same panicked thought. I should not be laughing. I should not be laughing. And yet the tension inside me built like a shaken soda can. Every time the mom wailed the cat's name in that trembling, operatic cry, another wave of inappropriate laughter pressed against my chest. I could feel each one rising, threatening to escape at the worst possible moment. I needed distance, air, anything. I slipped into the kitchen and grabbed the wine bottle with the desperation of someone reaching for a lifeline. The boyfriend followed me a moment later, face pale, shoulders slumped. He didn't say anything. He just reached for the wine glass and poured himself the kind of amount that would make a bartender lose their license. For a moment, we stood shoulder to shoulder, united in silent horror. No words needed. You don't need a language to communicate. This is the worst night of our lives, and it keeps getting worse. From the dining room came more gasping laughter. From the garage came a broken cry of "Pickles!" that carried through the walls. The two sounds collided somewhere in the hallway like mismatched sound effects from two different movies. I turned to the boyfriend, not sure what to say. He turned to me, not sure what to say either. We exchanged a look that said, "If we survive this night, we are never speaking of it again." Then the girlfriend began shouting through laughter, "It the potatoes!" The potatoes did it. Before dissolving again into screeching giggles, she slapped the table so hard the utensils rattled. The boyfriend looked physically pained. The mom cried louder, as if the universe balanced each laugh with an equivalent sob. He scrubbed his face with both hands and muttered, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. Neither could I." He stepped back into the garage to help his mother, but the moment he opened the door, the mom cried out again, this long, trembling wail, "Pickles!" It echoed across the living room. The girlfriend burst into fresh, explosive hysterics, laughing so hard she squealed. She tried to cover her mouth, but her entire body convulsed with laughter she couldn't control. She slid halfway off her chair, legs kicking, face red. I whispered, "Please stop. Please, please stop." But it only made her laugh harder. I sat beside her for a moment, trying to calm her down, but she was far beyond calming. She kept pointing at me, unable to breathe through the hysteria, and between gasps she wheezed, "Your face, your face, your face," before collapsing into another round of uncontrollable laughter. I wasn't even making a face. I was in survival mode. But in her drunken, chaos-driven logic, my tight-lipped attempt to keep from laughing must have looked like the funniest thing she had ever seen. My resolve cracked then, not fully, but in this dangerous, trembling way where you feel laughter trying to burst through your chest like a prisoner digging through a wall with a spoon. I pressed my lips together, biting down, staring at the table like it could save me. The harder I tried to suppress it, the stronger the urge became. It was like trying to put out a grease fire by throwing more oil at it. Finally, I whispered the only coherent thing in my mind, "I need more wine." And I did, because if I didn't numb my brain, I was going to explode. The boyfriend came back in, eyes wild, hair disheveled, as if he had aged a decade in 10 minutes. He stared at his girlfriend, then at me, then at the half-finished dinner on the table. He muttered to himself, "Tonight is cursed," and grabbed another bottle. We opened wine like people trapped on a sinking ship opening whatever they could before it went under. At some point, Pickles passed quietly. The mom's crying changed from panic to devastation. The shift was subtle but noticeable, a deep, hollow grief rather than frantic fear. Her sobs became slower, heavy, like each one drained something from her body. She clutched the cat's blanket to her chest, rocking back and forth. The boyfriend stayed near her, torn between consoling her and checking that his girlfriend wasn't destroying the house. He peeked into the dining room at one point and caught her sliding off her chair onto the floor, still laughing so violently she hiccuped. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and I swear I could see his soul leaving his body again. Eventually, the crying in the garage softened into exhausted whimpers. The laughter in the dining room slowed only because the girlfriend ran out of energy, collapsing sideways on the rug like a broken marionette. And I was left in the middle, staring at the fireplace, sipping wine, wondering how the human brain handles two opposite emotional catastrophes at the same time. We ended up gathered around the fire because none of us could leave. Too much wine, too much responsibility, too much disaster. The mom stayed in the garage with the cat's body, holding him like she could keep him warm with her grief. The boyfriend sat beside the fire, knuckles white as he gripped his glass. I sat beside him, trying not to think about all the ways this night had destroyed my sanity. The girlfriend sprawled across the carpet in front of the fireplace, still occasionally letting out these small, broken laughs each time the mom wailed again from the garage. Every time she heard, "Pickles," echo faintly through the hallway, she shook with fresh laughter, pressing her face into the rug to muffle the sound. She was beyond gone, a shell of her former self, a fully malfunctioning human. At one point, she lifted her head, pointed at me with a trembling hand, and said, Is this real?" before spiraling into laughter again. The boyfriend groaned and sank deeper into his seat. "I am going to need therapy," he whispered. "Same, bro. Same." Hours passed. The crying from the garage faded into quiet sniffles. The wine bottles emptied. The fire crackled with the kind of warmth that mocked the emotional coldness smothering the house. At around 10 p.m., when my brain felt like wet cardboard and my emotional stability had evaporated entirely, I realized I needed to escape. I stepped outside to call someone, anyone who could pick me up. I didn't care who. I just needed to be extracted from that house like a soldier evacuated from a battlefield. When my ride arrived, I said my goodbyes as politely as someone fleeing a disaster zone. The boyfriend nodded like he understood. The girlfriend waved from the floor, still giggling weakly. The mom didn't even see me leave. She remained in the garage, whispering to Pickles under the dim light, cradling him like a child. And as I closed the front door behind me, one last mournful cry echoed faintly through the house. "Pickles!" Followed immediately by the girlfriend's muffled snort laugh. That was it, the final imprint on my soul. The final note of the most devastating, hilarious, traumatic, confusing, unforgettable dinner I will ever experience. And that is the story of the night I watched a cat's death unravel a family, destroy a dinner, break a woman's heart, and send a fully grown adult woman into laughter so intense she peed her pants on Thanksgiving. It was the night everything fell apart, the night grief and chaos clashed. The night I realized that no matter how old I get, nothing will ever top the emotional whiplash of the Great Pickles dinner disaster.